What's up, guys, and welcome to Press A repeatedly. Justin Tomasello here with Chris Gold.
Hello, everybody.
Chris, you're still ill.
I am still ill. Unfortunately, I did warn you. I warned you last week. I warned you all that whenever I get this this sinus condition or this cough, it always lingers for a while for me. It's unfortunate. It's inherent in my nature. It's part of the reason why my type of person doesn't survive for so long, because natural predators always hang out just outside the periphery and pick us off when we least suspect it, because we're always so sickly.
Well, Chris, you are getting older now, so I would just like to remind everybody that we are taking open applications for a replacement of a co-host on this podcast in the inevitable event that you just don't hang on. But we're pulling for you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. That means the world to me.
Yeah, it would also make sense that you are ill from a very busy week once again, because there have been some major releases, a lot of games to be played, and a lot of news actually that happened in the past couple of weeks. That's actually going to be our big topic for the end of the episode, where we discuss just another news roundup of things that are going on, in the gaming world.
Yeah, lots been going on, and as we discussed last time on the news roundup, we don't ordinarily talk about the news on our show, but particularly when there's a very heavy week, we do like to dive in a little bit and just catch everybody up on what's been happening. So that's what we're going to be doing this week. But first things first, Justin, shout out to friend of the show, Dave, who is getting married.
Yes, he is, actually. A couple weeks ago, my brother got married. Now it's Dave's turn, and he's getting married this weekend to his lovely fiancée, soon-to-be wife, Jenna. And we here at Press A repeatedly are wishing them all the best.
Yes, Dave has been on the show a few times previously. Not only that, but behind the scenes, Dave is also responsible for mixing and mastering our audio files so that they sound as crisp and as clear as possible. So yes, thank you, Dave, for all of that hard work that you do for us, and congratulations to you and Jenna.
And we can't fail to mention and plug his sister podcast of Age of Enfrightenment.
Yes, of course, especially around this time of year when it's Halloween and everything is at its spookiest and creepiest. If you're into that sort of thing, if you like being scared, but then the next minute laughing your ass off because the hosts of that show are absolutely hilarious, then yeah, Age of Enfrightenment is the podcast for you.
All right, enough praise of those chuckleheads. Let's get back to business.
Yes, agreed. So not only has there been a lot of game news over the past couple of weeks, but there have been a lot of gameplay over the past few weeks. So, Justin, what are you playing?
All right, this is probably the most heavy-loaded weekend of the entire year in terms of game releases. You have Super Mario Odyssey coming out for Switch. You have Assassin's Creed Origins coming out. You have Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, coming out. And also Destiny, the PC version, came out just this weekend. Obviously, we love to play all these, but we don't get review copies to this podcast, so we can only play what we can buy. And if you are a listener of this show, you're pretty confident in the game that we got, and that, of course, is Super Mario Odyssey.
I would love to have had the time and the funds to pick up all of those wonderful games. I'm really excited for Wolfenstein 2. That looks like a ton of fun. Assassin's Creed Origins. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Assassin's Creed series. I kind of fallen off of it after 3, to be honest, but Origins looks like it's a lot of fun. It's been getting great reviews, and yeah, I'm really excited to one day, one day pick up those titles. But for now, it's Mario time.
Yeah, we'll definitely get around to them, especially the fact that Wolfenstein 2 is coming to the Switch. That's really cool. I'm really interested to see how that is going to perform. But for now, Mario time. And Chris, obviously, we'll go through this together because we're both playing it, so jump in whenever. It is unbelievable. It's really just, it's everything you wanted it to be and more. It's bursting in the seams with just this pure magic and charm, and you literally will not be able to wipe the stupid grin off your face the entire time you're playing this game.
Man, it just where to even begin with this game? Like it's just so like beautiful. Firstly, like I guess I'm not too much of like a graphics like graphics are the most important thing, but this game just looks beautiful. Like the aesthetic is that classic like Mario aesthetic where everything is bright and colorful and cartoony, and it's just like I know for a lot of people that's not their style. Like a lot of people don't necessarily like the cartoony graphics, which to me is insane. Like if a game plays good and it feels good and is fun to play, then I don't think graphics necessarily detract from a game. But fortunately, Mario, especially Mario Odyssey, is not lacking in either category. It looks good, it feels good, it's just I love it.
It's funny, it's all over the internet. Like you can't go 2 seconds in the newsfeed without seeing a post about Super Mario Odyssey. And I've seen some very rare stuff of like, oh, this is just a game for the fanboys, and the fanboys are excited, and that's such bullcrap. Because if anybody played this game, you're gonna enjoy it. Like I can't see anybody not having fun playing this game. Like I know it sounds weird, but like there's just so much to do. It's platforming perfection. The controls are unbelievably fluid. The graphics, as you said, are incredible. Like I don't know what there isn't to like, unless you like purposely hate Nintendo or Mario so much that like you'll just, even then, like I bet you're just putting on a front to say you hate it, but then if you secretly had it in your room, you would play it like all night.
Honestly, that is very hard for me to believe as well. This game is just pure enjoyment. Like I mean, let's I guess we'll set it up for everyone. Like you're Mario, and you start out like the very opening seconds of the game. Like it doesn't. I love it. It just completely skips over the whole like, oh, it's a lovely day, everything is wonderful and peaceful, and then Bowser shows up and messes everything up. The game literally just immediately drops you in the middle of that initial fight with Bowser. Yeah. Just no setup whatsoever. And yeah, from there, you eventually meet your companion throughout the game, Cappy, who you throw Cappy onto various objects and enemies to quote-unquote capture those objects.
I never noticed that pun. That's pretty good.
Yep, that's that is Nintendo's clever way of referring to it. Rather than diabolical possession of these different entities, it's called capturing. So it's nice and benevolent. But yeah, so once you capture these enemies or whatever, you can move around or perform various actions as those entities, and you can do things that Mario otherwise could not do. Like for instance, say you've got a really wide chasm between you and where you need to go next, and to your side is a bullet bill launcher, and a bullet bill fires off at you. Well, you throw your cap at the bullet bill, and now all of a sudden you become the Bullet Bill, and you can now fly across this chasm and jump out on the other side once once you've made it clear.
Yeah, it's like a very clever way of making new power ups for Mario. Instead of like, okay, here's a bunny suit, here's a cat suit, whatever. It's like here are different things that you can take control of that you'll transform into, and each of them has like just one, but an ability that'll help you do something, like to get across a gap or destroy a lot of enemies or something, like. And it's so weird when I took control in the first level. This isn't really a spoiler; it's just the first level. But there's a T-Rex in the first level, and you can take control of that. And it was so weird because I don't know if it was how realistic the T-Rex looked in comparison to the Mario universe, or just the fact that like I'm playing this giant ferocious thing and like I can literally destroy anything in my path. But like I had such this moment of like this is something like really unique here. Like it was just it like overtook me almost. Like I couldn't believe that I'm this gigantic T-Rex with a Mario hat and a mustache, like smashing chain chomps and like just terrorizing through a level. And it was just it's like a crazy departure that you would never expect to work, but it still does. It's crazy.
It does, because I feel like it just maintains that old school Mario charm to it, where it never takes itself like overly seriously. You're just okay. You're Mario. You get to capture a bunch of things. Here's this semi-open world for you to traverse, and the game just says, "All right, go find those power moons." And that to me is my favorite part of Odyssey so far. Is it calls back to like the Mario 64 and even to Sunshine, how you could go into a world. Well, not. I guess like my memory on Sunshine is fuzzy, but you could go into a world, and whatever star or shine sprite or whatever collectible you're trying to get, you go in there and it says, okay, you get this one. But you can go into that world and you could get other stars as well. Like, I guess my quintessential example of this is Bob-omb Battlefield from 64, where you can go in for like the boss fight with the giant Bob-omb on top of the mountain, but you could still get the star hidden behind that chain with the chain chomp guarding it.
As much as I despise agreeing with you,
it's just the bane of your existence. Like, oh god, I can't. I agree.
I regrettably agree, but no, you're totally right. I mean, that exploration of Super Mario 64, the encouragement of exploration was, without a doubt, my favorite part of that game and what kept me so invested. And this new one is even more than that, because like Super Mario 64, you still pick a star, and like you don't have to get that star, but like that's the one that like sometimes the level is set up for you to get that star. In Odyssey, it's just you're in this world and you press like the select button that brings up your map, which is like a travel brochure of the kingdom that you're in, which is really awesome. And it just has a list of all the moons, just a number of like how many there are, and then like basically go find them. Like I was playing the first kingdom for like over an hour. I got all 50 purple coins, and I was like, all right, I got a lot of moons here. I think I had about 14 moons. I'm like, I gotta have like all of them pretty much. I want to go to the next kingdom, and then I brought up that brochure, and there's 25 moons there, and I only have 14. And like I scoured that place. I don't even know where to look for these other ones. Like it's crazy. It's so cool.
Wow. See, I had 16 of the power moons, and to be honest, like I didn't even look at that map. Like, I didn't even see the travel brochure, so
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that was actually there to tell you where the power moons were.
Yeah, it's like a list, and I don't think it tells you. It just tells you the number of how many there are, and the ones that you found, it tells you the name, because like every moon has like a name of like finding that moon, like cross the big canyon or something like that.
Right.
And there's ways to like they're almost like a hint in that name of like how to do it. And there are ways to unveil the hints. Like I just was messing around last night with the amiibo functionality, and I was talking to the amiibo robot, and he was like, "Oh, scan an amiibo, see what it does." Because if you scan any amiibo, I think it'll give you a hint of where a moon is, but you have to wait 5 real-time minutes to get that hint, which is weird. I don't know why that's even in there. Um, I don't have a lot of amiibo. I have Luigi, Falco, and Shovel Knight, and I was like, well, Luigi makes the most sense, obviously. So I scanned in Luigi, and the robot was like, "All right, come back in 5 minutes. Oh, but also I have this costume for you. Do you want to try it out?" And I was like, "Sure." And it was Luigi's costume. The overalls, the green shirt, and the green hat.
Nice.
But I'm Mario wearing Luigi's clothes. It was the weirdest, wrongest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, sometimes Mario just wants to. Maybe Mario is jealous of his brother. Maybe Mario doesn't like the limelight and wishes he could wallow in obscurity and misery the way his younger brother does.
Yeah, perhaps. Speaking of clothes, though, one of my favorite things to do when I first start playing a new Mario game is like zoom in on Mario and look at the detail of the clothing. They are unbelievable in this game. Like you can see the stitching of his overalls. You can see like the thread count. If you zoom in on his shirt, it looks like a little fuzzy material almost, like a velvety kind of material texture on it. And then his hair, which is normally just like a brown, like kind of polygon, like it has individual like hair, pieces in it, and also has like a little bit of a wave of like coloring. It's not just brown, like there's some yellow and white in there too. It's crazy. Like I did in the very first transformation in the game, you transform into the frog, which is that was one of my favorite screenshots when they first unveiled the game of like Mario going inside the frog and the frog like freaking out.
That sequence is terrifying.
Yeah, so I saw the frogs. I knew that was coming up. I was prepared for it, and you transform into the frog, and it gets into this whole cutscene of like Mario like spinning through like time and space, and like his body is like warping and stuff, and I knew that was coming, so I was just pressing the screenshot button like over and over and over again. So I have like 10 screenshots of like Mario transforming and like basically going through the black hole of becoming a frog, and it's freaking awesome.
What's funny too is like he's like so freaked out. He's like and and he transforms into this frog, and what you realize is like every time you do that during the game, Mario must be going through that every single time. We just don't see it.
Because, yeah, I thought about that.
Yeah, because us it's just like, oh, there's a Goomba. You throw the head on him, and it's just and he's there. But for Mario internally, he's like, everything hurts, and then he's a Goomba.
Yeah, because I kept throwing my hat at the chain chomps for this one part, and I was trying to break all the blocks. And if another chain chomp hits you while you are in control of a chain chomp, you lose control and you pop back out. So I had to keep doing it over and over and over again. And I just kept thinking to myself, every single time I throw my hat, Mario is like bending through time and space like, just to take control of this chain chomp. It's hysterical.
It is. Have you done any found any secret moons or anything that you haven't that weren't on the map?
Yeah, so when I was exploring for the coins, which actually took me a little while, they were kind of well hidden.
I still haven't found all the purple coins.
Yeah. And the first world, it's not even really that big, but it's laid out in such a way where there are like just so many different angles and like corners and nooks and crannies to explore. I found a room where you go in it and you take control of a T-Rex and you have to like destroy everything in the room under a certain amount of time, and then that unlocks a moon. That was pretty cool. I found one where you go down a pipe and there's a couple rooms with chain chomps in them, and you have to take control of the chain chomps and like fling yourself towards another chain chomp so that that chain chomp ricochets off of you and bounces into a target, and you have to do that 3 different times of like 3 different levels of difficulty, and then that unlocks a moon at the end of that. Yeah, it's crazy. Like just these hidden pipes everywhere. And we didn't even talk about the 2D retro style graphics.
Oh yeah, those
of
segments,
like going into those segments. Yeah, oh my god, it's awesome. You go into a pipe, and then on the side of a wall is basically like Super Mario Bros. For the NES style, like pixel art. The music is fantastic, by the way. And whatever track you're listening to will automatically transform in the part that you were listening, like the exact part, into like an 8-bit version of it. And you're jumping on Goombas and Koopas and breaking question mark blocks and like basically looking through areas there. And sometimes there's moons in those segments also, so you'll see like an 8-bit moon like hiding like in a corner. You can grab that. It's so cool.
I mean, I will say specifically right now with the Sand Kingdom. That's really the first like proper level in the game, I would say.
Yeah.
If I had to lodge one complaint with this game, and it's a minor complaint, it's just the world is very big, and a lot of these like if you see something like, oh, there's something over there I want to go see, I mean, your only real option to get there is to run towards it. Like, there's no, like, riding on Yoshi or, like, here's, like, a little fast travel option or anything like that. And it takes a while to get from, like, point A to point B sometimes. Like, especially if you're going from, like, the little town or, like, the main area where the bosses are and you see something off in the distance. But, like, that is a very minor gripe. Because, like, ultimately, those side quests, those things, like those curiosities that are off to the side, those are my curiosities. Those are things that I'm interested in, but, like, it's not required to actually beat the game for all intents and purposes. So it's not something that I can say, oh, this is terrible, 7 out of 10. But it's it's just like a little annoyance.
Yeah. Well, that's like just the open world kind of syndrome thing. I remember I had that problem with Fallout 4 for a while, where like I was like, all right, look, I have to go get this quest done. I just gotta do it. I gotta focus, and I would just start heading there, and then pass a building that I haven't been in yet, and I'm like, maybe I should go check that out, and like just extreme ADD, get distracted really easily. Breath of the Wild, I did that a lot too. Like, oh man, so many times I was like heading towards a divine beast, and I just got sidetracked and did something else. Heck, there was even times where I was on a divine beast, and I was like, man, I just don't feel like doing this right now, and I left the actual dungeon to go explore some more.
That's awesome that game gave you that opportunity.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, just I mean, at this point, like, this is just about to become like a Mario Odyssey cast, which I have no issues with whatsoever. But yeah, this game is amazing, and I'm in love with this game.
Yeah.
I want to end recording so I can go back to playing it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I want to wrap this up too. I just want to say I have a few caveats with the game. Again, they're very minor, but I don't like there's a very heavy hand towards the motion controls, which, like, they've always done that ever since they've made the motion controls. But this one, like, even when you first start the game, it tells you, like, oh, the recommended way to play this game is to hold the 2 Joy-Cons in your hands, and then you have to, like, press a button to get past that menu, and it takes a little bit of a time for it to go away. And like, I don't need that. Like, maybe show it to me once. Like, not every single time I turn on the game. That's really annoying. But then like, there's a lot of moves. Not a lot, but some of the moves that you can do everything on a controller, but they make it easier a little bit with the motion controls. Like, there's a homing attack where that one you actually can't do on the controller. You have to shake. Once you throw Cappy, you have to shake a Joy-Con, and it will home. The cap will home on enemy and go for it. But there's no button way to do that. So you have to press Y to throw the cap, and then literally shake your controller to home on the enemy. So that's kind of annoying. And then there's also a spin attack move where Mario throws his hat and like it spins around in a circle and it hits enemies that are like surrounding you. And to do that with the Joy-Cons, you have to like kind of shake them with your hands. But if you're playing with a controller, you have to physically like shake the controller in your hands, which is kind of like awkward and weird. But you can also do it by spinning the circle pad and then hitting Y. But that's kind of clunky too. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I kind of wish it was just like a one button press for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. The motion controls are a little annoying. I still have not been able to master throwing Cappy up or throwing Cappy down.
Yeah, that's another one.
To anything. So, like, if there's something, like, way up high that I want to throw Cappy on, I just jump as high as I can with Mario, and then I'll throw Cappy just normally, just in a straight line.
Yeah. I'm sure it works great and feels good when you're playing with the two Joy-Cons in each hand, but I don't want to play that way. I like having the controller accessory. So, I don't know. It's kind of like I'm being forced of a little bit of a more annoying experience. So that kind of bothers me. But also, I've talked about this before, but I don't really like the whole new system of when you die, you just lose like 10 coins and you go back a little bit. Like, I missed the life counter, and I missed like getting like game overs and like having to start world over. It just made it feel a little bit more challenging, and like kind of brought a little bit more gravity to like, all right, this is my last life. You know, I really have to focus here if I want to get past this platforming part. Whereas like now it's like infinite times you can do it. You know, it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, but I mean, even before, like in the older Mario games, like the 3D Mario games, when you had a game over or you lost all your lost lives or whatever, there really wasn't that big a penalty for getting a game over or any of that. Like, you would just, oftentimes you would start off the same way where you were. Like, there was no big penalty for getting a game over in the 3D Mario games. Like, maybe you'd lose a checkpoint, but that's not that big a deal.
Yeah, no, I guess true. Maybe I'm just a purist. I hate change.
You do. You're, violently opposed to change.
All right. But yeah, it's even more than I thought it was going to be, which is saying a lot because I thought it was going to be incredible. I'm only like 2 hours in so far, so I'm sure I'll have a lot more to say next week. But just really happy it's finally here, and really happy we were finally able to play it.
I am thrilled as well. Justin, what else have you been playing?
Okay, now that we got all that Mario out of my mouth,
There's a million ways you could take that phrase.
No, I'm gonna stick with that one. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Just pop that Mario right on out. Just.
I played this week. Life is Strange Before the Storm, episode 2.
Ooh, nice.
And it's funny, I didn't expect that to come out so quickly after the first episode. It was only like about a month and a half's time, whereas the previous Life is Strange, like there was a couple month gap between the episodes. So when it came out, I was like, "Wow, that's out? Like seriously?"
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this to come out so soon. Also, like, I think it was a couple weeks ago. They were like, "Oh, we're having an announcement on when Life is Strange episode 2 is coming out," and it's like, "Oh, okay." And then it was like, "Oh, it's coming out next week." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's soon.
It's kind of hard to talk about. This is a heavily story-based game, obviously, so I'm not really going to talk too much about it because of fear of spoilers. But
Right.
um, it feels just as good as the first one. I don't know which one I like more. Which episode I like more. I think the first one started weak and ended really strong. Episode 2 is pretty consistent the entire episode, I think. Um, and there's a lot more development of the characters and basically build up for, I guess, the next episode, which is the final episode. And it's kind of weird because I feel like they have a lot to clear up and they only have one episode, and somehow these have to link together with the actual Life is Strange game, and I just feel like they have a lot more work to do to get that like link to happen. So it'll be really interesting to see how they handle the third episode. And it's it's really weird. I feel like so they use motion capture for the graphics for this game. Like someone is actually acting out the movement and stuff, and that looks great. But the facial expressions sometimes look really bad, especially in the beginning of episode 2. If you just watch like Chloe's mom's face and like David's face, her stepdad, and like they just don't. They're very stiff, and like the eyes don't even like look at the right area. Like it looks kind of weird. But it's not. That's not all the time because like Chloe and Rachel and everybody else, like that they look great. I don't know, maybe it was just a small thing that I picked up, but that was kind of weird.
No, that sort of thing is important, especially in a game that is as heavily story driven as Life is Strange. You want to have that level of immersion, and you want to invest yourself in the story. And those little moments like that just completely take you out of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not a. I mean, I don't think that's a minor complaint.
It's weird because it's inconsistent. Like sometimes the characters look really stiff, like to the point of like, yeah, I really am noticing it and it's taking me out. But then other times, like they're almost like very fluidly rendered and animated. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing. And also, I noticed this isn't a problem for everybody, but I think it's an issue with Square because Final Fantasy 15 had the same problem where they have the game. I guess the aspect ratio of the game is a little bit bigger than most standard TVs, and it kind of cuts off the sides and the top of the game. And they fixed this for Final Fantasy 15 a couple months after release, because on my TV when I started playing it, like I couldn't even see like the side, your quest notifications on the side were getting cut off, and like half of my map was cut off. And then they fixed that and condensed it down. But for this game, it's having the same problem, and like Chloe reads her text messages, and like they're at like the bottom of the screen, and sometimes they get kind of cut off, and like some of the memos get cut off, and the button prompts are in the bottom right side of the screen, and they'll get kind of cut off, and it's annoying because if they fixed it for Final Fantasy 15, why wouldn't they fix it for this game? So I don't know. Maybe they'll fix that in an update.
Yeah, that is a bit annoying.
Yeah, and then yeah, I mean, not much more to say. Really looking forward to the third story. It's really picking up.
Did episode 2 like end with a similar hook to episode 1, where you're like, ooh, like man, I really can't wait for episode 3 now?
Yes, absolutely, it does. They're so good. Again, this is Deck 9. It's not Dot9 who made the first game,
Right.
And I was skeptical about that when I first heard about that, but these guys are doing an awesome job of really capturing the characters. I even think that the writing might be a little bit better in this one than it is in the actual Life is Strange. And yeah, exactly that. Life is Strange is known for having really good hooks and cliffhangers at the end of their episodes, and there's a really, really good one at this one that, I'm not going to spoil, but yeah, play it. I want to know what you think.
Nice. I haven't had a chance myself to get around to playing this, but I definitely will. Man, that series is just so good.
Yeah, and you're really gonna like it. I mean, this episode actually felt a little bit longer than most episodes do, which I liked. I was like, I kept thinking like, oh, this is where it's gonna end. This is where it's gonna end, and it just kept going. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But then like you'll know when it ends when the big reveal is dropped. And I'm gonna stop before I spoil anything incidentally.
Yes, please do not spoil this this
Yeah.
series.
And yeah, that's pretty much it for me this week.
All right, cool.
Right? Did you have another question?
No, I don't have anything more to say to you.
Okay, sorry. Chris, what are you playing?
Okay, so this week I've pretty much devoted my life to living on the farm in Stardew Valley.
All right, how are you making out?
I am making out very well. I'm currently in the middle of winter, and right now I have a coop and a barn, and I mean they're full up with chickens and cows, and
Yep.
I'm going in there, and I have 2 silos. I have 2 full silos, not full of hay, but more than enough hay to feed all 8 of them through the winter. So I'm all set. And they're kind of my money makers now that I can't grow anything since it's winter. And it's funny. I have the chickens named after Elena and her family.
What a lovingly way to represent them by naming chickens after them.
It could be worse. I named the cows after all of you guys.
What?
Yeah, so I have a cow named Justin. I have another cow named Butch, another Nick, and the 4th is Annie.
Wow, I'm glad to see we mean so much to you in animal form.
Yes, you are my cows, and I take good care of you guys. Like I even have heaters in both my barn and my coop to keep everyone warm.
While you fondle my udders.
I take extra long milking that one. But so yeah, so I have my cows and I have my chickens. Plus I do my regular foraging where I just find different things. And in the meantime, I'm upgrading a lot of my equipment, and I'm also maintaining a few of the relationships that I've fostered with the rest of the villagers in Pelican Town. And right now, I kind of find myself, relationship-wise, caught in the middle of a love triangle.
Really? Do dish.
Yes. And I'm not sure, where it's going to end up. Because, see, on the one hand, there's Penny. Sweet Penny, the teacher. She, every day she's teaching the children, and she's just, the nicest, sweetest girl in the town. And she, goes home and she lives in the trailer with her mom, and, I don't know, you feel bad for her. She's just, I don't know. There's just something about Penny. But on the other hand, there's Leah. Leah, the artist, who lives in the cottage by the lake. Leah is fun and outgoing, and she's bright and cheerful. And, man, just right now with Penny, I have 8 hearts. Leah, I have 7 hearts.
Oh my god. Wow, you're really going for both. Also, you have a thing for redheads.
Apparently I do.
As a redhead yourself.
It's part of our nature. Can't help it. But yeah, so, I mean, right now, Penny is in the lead with hearts, but Leah has a birthday coming up, and she loves salads. and you can bet when her birthday shows up, I'm gonna give her a salad, which she loves, and it's gonna drive her wild.
Let me give you a hot tip, okay?
Uh huh.
Because in my game, I married Leah. I'm in like year 2. We have a kid and stuff. Leah loves wine.
Mm.
So if you can get the winemaker, and you can make any kind of wine. You can make like blackberry wine, cranberry wine. Obviously, grape wine is the best, but make wine, stock up on it. Like just put a bunch in your fridge. Yeah, yeah. She likes to unwind with a nice glass of wine every now and then.
Hey, that's no issue for me. I like to imbibe every now and then in a nice bottle or two of wine each night.
Yeah, I mean, I see her living with me, and she just looks so goddamn bored. So I really can't blame her.
Just like, oh god,
for drinking 2 bottles of wine for lunch.
Yeah, just like goes out to lunch and like someone brings out a bottle. It's just leave the bottle. Take the glass, leave the bottle. But yeah, man, I don't know. Like it's a neck and neck race between Penny and Leah.
Well, good luck. Have you been able to afford a greenhouse yet?
I have not.
Yeah.
That's one of my focuses is on the community center and trying to like get all of those bundles taken care of as quickly as possible.
Oh, that's right. You don't buy the greenhouse; you unlock it, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah, I've been doing a lot of foraging and whatever crops I've been growing, I'm trying to plant those. I have a ton of money saved up right now where I can actually afford like saplings to plant trees. So I'm going to be doing that. I actually had I have a couple apple trees. So that was really useful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just I mean, it's Stardew Valley is just such a good game. There's so much to do. I mean, there's the relationships you can foster. I've been trying to get into the mines as much as I can during the winter. I've been trying to fish. It just There's so many things that you can do and so many directions you can go with that game. It's just unbelievable. The fact that it was, I mean, we've mentioned this before many times, but the fact that this was made by one person is just stunning to me.
I've heard that in the porting process there was a audio glitch problem for the Switch version. Have you encountered that?
I have noticed like the cows whenever I pet them, like and they moo, like the chickens, like they'll cluck and everything else sounds normal, but the cows mooing I notice sounds very crackly coming from the Switch speakers. That's really the major that's really the only audio quirk that I've noticed. I have noticed that there are a few sort of bugs and glitches with this port that, I mean, I didn't play a whole heck of a lot of the PC version, but I mean, I've devoted many more hours to the Switch version, so I don't know if they're the same glitches. But there are times where, like, your inventory, like, sometimes whatever was in your second row of inventory will be now in the first row, and vice versa.
Wow, that's annoying.
Like, they'll have swapped places at some point, so I'll have to go back in and manually, like, put everything back the way I had it. Yeah, there's just a few minor glitches here and there. Nothing that, like, breaks the game or anything like that. But
plus, a patch is in the works, so
right.
That'll be nice when that comes in.
Right, but yeah, overall I'm having a ton of fun with Stardew Valley, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Year 2 is coming up, so yeah, exciting times.
The best part about year 2 is that you're going into it with a lot of money saved up, so it's almost like you're starting the game over again,
right?
Because there's a lot more options available to you. So, yeah, man, it's a great game. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yes. I also was playing a lot of Super Mario Odyssey, and which we discussed ad nauseum earlier. So, honestly, I think that's it. Because, like, literally every night this week I was just coming home and I was parking myself on Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
It's the type of game where you start playing it and it's like, oh, let me play this for a minute or two, and next thing you know you look at the clock and like you started playing at like 7 and you look at the clock and it's like 11:30 and you're like, oh god, where did the night go?
Yeah, it's so crazy. I had that same exact, feeling when I was playing that game so many times. I'm like, all right, I'll just pop in for a little bit. And like, well, time to go to bed.
Yep. Next thing you know, the sun is rising and you're like, oh god, I forgot to sleep.
All right, buddy. Well, if you're wrapped up here, that means it's time to dive into the creepy arcade. The creepy arcade. If you remember last week, I gave Chris the hit indie game Inside to play. Chris, take it away.
Inside is a very, very unsettling game. It's not, I guess, a horror game in a traditional sense. I don't know. Like it's a very difficult game to describe. The game is amazing. First and foremost, the controls for it are very simple. You have your directional buttons, left, right, up, down, and you have the right control on your keyboard. So literally, you could play the entire game one-handed with like your fingers resting on the directional buttons and another finger resting on right control, and you just play the game very, very simple, right? The puzzles in the game are very challenging, and they require a lot of outside the box thinking. Like there are a lot of puzzles where, I mean, they just seem like very obvious. Like, oh, like here's this door that's that I can't lift here. So let me go back and find this like thing to pry it open. It's just it's very hard to describe Inside without describing the things that you see and experience in Inside. But the issue with that is Inside is the type of game where I don't want to talk too much about what happens, because if you know what happens, like it ruins some of like the oh my god factor of the game.
Right.
And I mean, 50,000 foot overview. You're this boy, and you start off the game. There's no explanation. There's no motivation given. Whatever. You're just running to the right side of the screen, and you pretty much do this throughout the entire game. You're just constantly running to the right. You start out in the woods, and eventually you make your way to this factory. Like
is it strict like 2D, or is it like a 2.5D where you can also kind of go like up and down, or is it just left to right?
It's just left to right. Like
okay.
you can jump up and down different obstacles, and there are different parts of the environment you can interact with if you hit the right control button, which is like your grab button. But that's like the control scheme is very simple, but they do so much with it. Like there are points where you're being chased like by, say, these like soldiers or these dogs that are like chasing you and barking after you, and sometimes they will run in from the background, and they will chase you like running. They'll run towards the foreground, and you can only run right or left, so you have to try to outrun them doing that just in any one direction. And this game is so well designed. Like the level designs are so tight. Those sequences where the AI is trying to attack you, it always keeps the tension up, because you don't know what's going to attack you. You don't know when they're going to attack you. And they're designed in such a way where they're just about to get you, but then there's like a little gap, and then you jump over this ledge. Like literally, they're inches away from getting you, and you jump and you escape them just in the nick of time.
Oh man!
So you're constantly like, oh, thank God, like, and it's just the things that you see and experience in this factory. Like, there is some bad like human experimentation going on in this factory,
right?
And I mean, you see some freaky things. You have to fight these freaky things, and by fight I mean like you're just a small boy, like you can't actually fight anything, so you have to either like escape or evade these enemies or block them somehow. And the game is very atmospheric. Like, it makes great use of lighting, both to heighten the sense of tension that you feel as a player, but also to kind of guide your way to where you need to go. So, like, there are certain areas where you need to swim underwater, and the only light is this ceiling lamp that's illuminating the water below. So you swim down and you can't really see much of anything, but then as you swim down, you see a source of light over to the right side of the screen. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's where I need to go. So you swim over there, and the game kind of like guides you that way.
What do you think of the art style?
I thought the art style was extremely appropriate for this game. Like, all of the characters, like, they're humanoid characters, right? But they don't have faces. None of the characters have faces. They're just all like this pale white-skinned look, and everyone's just kind of like doing their thing. The aesthetic is kind of like a little blocky, but stylized to imitate a realism of some sorts. And it's really effective because like it's just kind of off-putting and unsettling in and of itself. And there are some parts where, like, as you're running across, like, there's this big open area, and the camera just kind of, it's very similar to Little Nightmares, where the camera just kind of like pulls back a little bit, and you get a sense of how small you are compared to the grand size and scope of this environment that you find yourself in.
Oh, sounds awesome.
Yeah, there's no soundtrack to the game whatsoever. All of the noise you hear is ambient, or it's like or dogs are like barking and snarling at you. Sometimes people, like flashlights will click on and you'll hear that click. It's just yeah,
I think that's what creeps me out the most, is the absence of a soundtrack in a game. Like, I get so like tense when I don't hear any music.
Yeah, I'm the same way. If I'm playing a game, and a horror game, and there's no like soundtrack to it, I have two thoughts. Okay, one, this game is going to do a really good job of terrifying me, and two, I don't want to play this game anymore.
3, I need a new pair of pants.
Yes, that is also true after a time. But yeah, Inside is I wish I could describe one moment in particular where you're underwater that just freaked me out the most while playing it. But
yeah,
again, that's a spoiler, so I can't.
I'm gonna get it, and I want to play it so we can both talk about it, because I really am excited about this game and really want to play it. Did you play through the whole thing?
Regrettably, I did not. I tried to get through as much as I could, which, I mean, this is not a long game. Like, you can beat this game in several hours if you have the time to devote to it. I am planning on beating this game and just getting it out, just getting it done and getting it beaten.
Yeah.
But by next episode, it will have been beaten. And it's just, man, it's so well done. Like, I can absolutely understand now why this was included in a lot of Game of the Year discussions for last year. I mean, it's just extremely well done. And if you really enjoyed Little Nightmares, Justin, then you're going to really enjoy Inside, because it's very reminiscent of that same style and that same gameplay.
Oh, man. Glad to hear that.
So, that was Inside. And now, Justin, it's my turn to give you a creepy arcade game.
I'm ready. You got me all pumped with Inside. I'm ready for a good creep fest.
All right. You ready to be creeped out?
I'm so ready.
Okay. Because this one is a title that I've been curious about for a while now. And I've heard a lot of good things online, but I want to get your opinion and perspective on it. This is a game that came out this year. Came out just a couple months ago, as a matter of fact. It's been in development for a few years, but it actually got a 1.0 release in August. This is, I believe, the first game from the Polish studio Acid Wizard Studios, and your creepy arcade game is Darkwood.
I've never heard of this, actually.
Darkwood, a new perspective on survival horror. Scavenge and explore a rich, ever-changing free-roam world by day, then hunker down in your hideout and pray for the morning light.
Whoa, this looks creepy as hell.
Yeah, it's, I mean, if you watch the trailer for it, it's a top-down perspective where you're wandering around the woods, and you have a flashlight that illuminates what's in front of you. And, yeah, your goal and your objective is to survive. Now, I don't know if there's an end goal or if it's just to survive as long as possible, but I've heard a lot of really, really good things about Darkwood as a horror game. I mean, you can see the reviews right now are all overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, and I really like the character design, too. I'm watching the video right now.
Yeah, it's something that's kind of been on my radar for a while now. Once I first saw it come out, I was like, oh, that looks interesting. But, I mean, this is 2017 where you have amazing games coming out literally every 3 seconds. So other games took up my time. But for right now, this is the perfect opportunity, I think, to have you play the game and offer up your opinions on Darkwood.
All right, sounds good. I'll definitely do that. But in the meantime, what do you say we take a quick break? And when we come back, we will have our second news roundup.
Yeehaw.
Welcome back. It's time for me and Chris to be your news anchors this week as we go into a few of the big topics that have come up in the last couple of weeks. Welcome back to the news. This is Tom Brokaw.
I'm Tom Brokaw.
My show is called The News. Alright, yeah, so let's just get started here. We got a couple topics to talk about. And the first is that the Nintendo Switch just had a big update last week. It is Switch version 4.0. And this brings in some pretty big things that, honestly, I didn't expect to be coming this quickly. One of them is, of course, video capture is now available for the Nintendo Switch. However, there's still some holes on it. It's not for any game. It's something that the developer has to decide they want to include in a game on their own time, basically. So for right now, there's only about 5 or 6 first-party games that have video capture available. And for right now, it's only 30 seconds of video capture. But according to Nintendo, that's going to be extended later for different games and maybe go all the way up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, that really is a welcome feature of the game. Like before, the the share button would only let you have screenshots of different moments, and this was any game that you could get a screenshot of. But yeah, the video capture is a really welcome inclusion. And I know it's limited right now to only just a few games, but hopefully with future updates, they can expand this into more games and even potentially to some third-party games. Because right now it's just first-party Nintendo-developed games that have this feature.
Also included in this update is the ability to transfer your avatar file to another system. This is a big thing that arguably probably should have been included in the launch of the system. But basically, you can take your profile. Let's say you have one Switch, and say it was me and like I had 2 kids that also had profiles on there. If I got them their own Switches for Christmas or whatever, I could take their profile of all their save data of the games they've been playing and transfer it to their own personal Switch, so they wouldn't have to put their greasy, grimy hands on my Switch anymore.
That's a welcome inclusion as well, but it doesn't go to, I think, the extent that a lot of people really wanted it to. Like, the process is still very clunky. Ultimately, I think people just want to have their accounts tied to an online account there, where nothing is necessarily tied to specific hardware. Like, let's transfer from one piece of hardware to the next. Like, no, just let me log into my account and boom, there's all my information right there.
Hopefully one day they get to that point, but again, this is Nintendo and they kind of do things their own way, so we'll see.
That is very true.
Yeah. And also included in this update was the ability to connect if you had the GameCube adapter for the Wii U, that allows you to plug in 4 GameCube controllers for Smash Brothers. That can now be connected to the Switch, and you can play using your GameCube controller. But what's funny is I saw a headline the other day that said Nintendo is also surprised to find out that you can connect your GameCube adapter to the Switch. So, like, they didn't intend for this to work all of a sudden, and I guess they're not really quite sure how that happened, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's... I guess it was just an unintended side effect of the actual update itself. But no, it's I think it's great because, the GameCube controller, we've talked about it before. It's one of our favorite controllers ever. The controller itself was actually the inspiration for the design and logo for our show.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a controller that's been very influential for us. And as of right now, I think people have pointed this out. This now makes 4 systems in a row released by Nintendo that supports, in some capacity, the GameCube controller.
That's pretty crazy.
And that to me like signals a couple of things. I mean, if they have the GameCube controller set up, like they say it's a surprise, but I mean, I don't know. I right
Yeah.
now you can speculate. Are they looking to, are we very shortly going to be getting a port of Smash Brothers to the system?
That makes the most sense, right? I mean, like maybe they're just saying they're surprised because they don't want their cover to be blown on this. But I mean, come on, we've been speculating that to come over for
I mean,
months.
yeah, it's obvious. Like if they brought over, they brought over Pokken Tournament DX. Why wouldn't they bring over Smash Brothers to the system? You know, the other bit of speculation that you've been seeing going around is possibly a GameCube Virtual Console coming to the Switch at some point. Right now, the GameCube, that generation is probably the oldest generation right now that doesn't really have like backwards compatibility system going for it. Like before, especially like with the Wii U, you had the N64, the Super NES, the NES, and all the systems from that era as backwards compatible for Virtual Console. But nothing really past that, which at this point, like those systems are old enough, those games are old enough where I feel like they qualify for a Virtual Console release. And it's fun.
Yeah, it's about time.
And it's funny too because that generation you are starting to get that backwards compatibility, not with Nintendo, but I know Xbox One. They've recently started implementing Xbox compatibility where users can actually play a lot of old classic original Xbox games on the system. So you're starting to see that generation have that release coming where it's starting to get that quote unquote retro label affixed to it. So who knows? Maybe this GameCube controller update is set up for that.
Yeah, very true. But yeah, these are all welcome updates to the Switch, and happy to have them.
Yes, I think the update also includes support for wireless earbuds or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Bluetooth headphones,
Yeah.
or not Bluetooth, but wireless. Yeah, as in if you have a USB connector, that'll plug in and they'll connect. But it's not anything Bluetooth internally in the system.
Right.
If you have Bluetooth in like the USB connector thing of your earbuds or something, I don't know.
Right.
I never use wireless headphones, so
Right, but I don't either. But if you do use wireless headphones, then yeah, the Switch is now capable of supporting those.
Moving on
to the next big topic is probably the implosion of NeoGAF over the weekend. Now, NeoGAF, for those of you who do not know, NeoGAF was been probably the largest and most popular gaming forum out there, specifically where game developers, game critics, game journalists, all these people, and I guess some hardcore fans could meet and discuss a lot of games and gaming news that was coming out within the industry. And NeoGAF was an extremely popular and well-resourced site because, again, these were a lot of first-hand sources who were having discussions on this forum. And I think by some people's estimate, like maybe 90% of whatever gaming news we heard about, either through like US Gamer or Kotaku or Giant Bomb or wherever, that news would come from NeoGAF.
So what caused this implosion?
Well, the owner of the site, his name is Tyler Malka, went by the username Evil Lore on NeoGAF and throughout his persona online. He was accused of sexual harassment against this woman out in I think it was in Las Vegas or something. Like he was hanging out with he was hanging out with this woman and a few other people at a hotel, and they all had a little too much to drink. This is all coming from a Facebook post from this woman, because in light of the recent Harvey Weinstein sexual harassment fallout, a lot of people have been coming out and having their own stories of sexual harassment in light of what's happened.
Yeah, there was even that story with the guy from Naughty Dog and all that going on as well.
Yeah, a lot of rocks are being overturned right now, and this one in particular caught NeoGAF, where this woman was describing how she had way too much to drink, like to the point where she was sick and like she was getting really ill, like in the hotel bathroom, and then like she like cleaned herself off in the shower, and I guess Malka decided that was an invitation to himself step into the shower with her uninvited. And yeah, just like really really weird, creepy behavior there. And it wasn't even like the only incident. Like there was also an earlier incident years ago where he was in Spain, I guess, and this woman offered to buy him a drink, and so like in response he like grabbed her rear end. It's just like,
okay, so we established he's a pig.
He is a pig, yes. And this news brought a lot of I guess shed a lot of light on who he is and like everything like that. And so the moderators of the forum pretty much all resigned en masse because they were so disgusted by his actions. And a lot of old-time users of the site, they either stopped using the site permanently or they requested that their accounts be permanently banned, which on most forums, when you request a permanent ban, it's usually seen as like a sign of protest against that site.
Right, and I guess it deletes all of your old postings and everything as well, right?
I don't necessarily know about that. Like, it prevents you from posting any further, but I think your history would still be on the forum.
Okay.
It'll just be archived in some way. But yeah, many users resigned. Well, the moderators resigned en masse. Many users fled the forum in disgust, and yeah, it was a huge kerfuffle over the weekend. And part of what fueled it too was Malka himself had said like a statement was forthcoming on the day the allegations came out, and he didn't actually say anything, not until a lot of this came to light thanks to like the reporting from, I think it was Cecilia D'Anastasio from Kotaku and Patrick Klepek on Waypoint. And it wasn't until Patrick Klepek's piece went up on Waypoint that he actually spoke with Malka, and Malka issued his statement through Klepek in the article that he wrote for Waypoint. So a lot of people took that, understandably, in a really negative light. And because, if rather than issuing an official statement on the forum itself, you speak to a reporter, you issue your statement through a reporter this way. Like, that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And that didn't encourage people to come back to the forums. Like, he's still, the site isn't dead, technically. Like he got rid of. There was two main forums there. There was the main gaming forum and there was the off-topic forum. And so he got rid of the off-topic forum so that they could quote unquote stick to what really mattered in discussions on NeoGAF, the games. Which, I mean, that's just, to me, an invitation where if people mention anything off topic, let's say about any allegations about any particular site owners, they could be banned or they could have their posts removed.
Yeah.
So a lot of the old moderators and users of the site, they actually formed a new forum, which is supposed to be, I guess, the new NeoGAF, the NeoGAF. And it's called Resetera, like reset and then era. And so, like, I mean, it just started out, and it's pretty much the same thing as NeoGAF, just without Malka's influence. And yeah,
Right.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it's major because again, NeoGAF was the source of a lot of major news and major developments that came out of the industry. So the fact that all this came out and came to light is, to me, not insignificant. Like, it's a really big deal.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'm glad that there is something new for those people that wanted to leave NeoGAF but still contribute now that they can with this new site that's in the works. And I would presume that that's going to get pretty big pretty quickly.
Yeah, especially, like, there were a lot of people, like, trying to find a new quote-unquote home after the collapse of NeoGAF. But a lot of different forums they tried going to weren't specifically, like, different forums have different rules. So it was hard for these new users to play by the rules of these forums they were trying to go to. So for them to have this new home for them to go to is really good for them. And yeah, I wish them a lot of success going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's next?
Let's see. Moving on next. Nintendo Nintendo had a big direct this week, actually, that was unveiling the much anticipated Animal Crossing project for smart devices, which is now going to be called Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. And this is basically, from what it looks like, a pretty well fledged out Animal Crossing game. It's not like an endless runner or like a match 3 or anything like that. So if you were worried about that, you're good. This is your classic Animal Crossing style, where it's the same angle of view. You actually move around on the screen, which they didn't really talk about how that works. I guess it's just like you kind of put your thumb in a direction and then maybe you'll move that way. I'm not really sure how most mobile games handle that free roamingness. But there's several different areas of this map where you can fish, you can collect bugs, you can mine for bells. You can, of course, get furniture. The main aspect of the game is that you are, instead of the mayor of, like you were in New Leaf, you are the camp director. And there is this weird, like outdoor patio thing that you can decorate with anything you want, basically. Like, you can put, like, sofas and TVs in there and stuff. And your goal is to attract the other campers, which are, like, the normal villager animals from Animal Crossing, to come and hang out there. And, you basically are decking this out. You also have an RV that you live in that you can customize, and it's almost like your house in Animal Crossing, where you can make it bigger. You can add like a second tier to the RV. You can actually customize the outside of the RV with like your different paint jobs and styles. There is a large support cast of characters that are in the game that we know from the previous Animal Crossing games. Chris, you want to briefly explain how the microtransactions are going to work?
So the microtransactions, it basically seems like there are different items that you can pick up in the game. Like, you get Leaf tickets that you can give to, like, Tom Nook or whoever in exchange for different items. And that's how you buy particular items or pieces of furniture or equipment in the game. And to get these Leaf tickets, I believe. Now, I don't necessarily know if there's a non-monetary way to get Leaf tickets, maybe by completing certain events or after waiting a certain waiting a certain amount of time. But you can also pick up Leaf tickets for real world money.
Mm-hmm. There is a way to do it. You can do everything in game. You don't have to spend a dime. Basically, because you need in this game you need to harvest materials to make items. Like, let's say if you want like a wooden frame, you need 3 pieces of wood. So you'll go chop down 3 trees, or even like do a quest for like a quest. I use that term loosely, but like, you know, you talk to a villager and they're like, "Oh, get me an apple," and you give them an apple, and then they give you wood that you can use towards turning in to Cyrus. He was like that blue llama guy from New Leaf.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Was he a llama or like a sheep or something? I don't know.
Yeah, he was. He was a llama.
Okay, but he is the crafter that's going to craft the furniture for you. So you basically need to get him the materials, and then he'll craft it. Where the leaf tickets come in, leaf tickets can only be purchased with real money. Basically, when Cyrus crafts something, it's going to take him a certain amount of time to make it. Like, for example, 3 real world hours. But if you want to speed that up, you can use these leaf tickets to get it like now, you know, like immediately. And like, it's not a big deal. But some projects, like, you know, in the presentation they showed Cyrus was building a pool for your camp, and it was going to take him 72 hours to make the pool, like 3 in-game days, like real game days, real life days. There we go. And you could speed that process up by buying these leaf tickets for real money, and, you know, he'll do it a lot faster. But nothing needs to be. You don't need to buy anything to do anything in the game. You could just wait those 3 days, and he'll still make it. You know, so really, it's very like a cosmetic, personal preference kind of thing, which I think is the best way to handle microtransactions if you have to have them in a game. Of course, nobody likes them, but from a business point of view, you want to make money. You know, you're gonna put them in there. You make it a suggestive thing, and people that want to spend money will. The people that don't want to spend money don't have to. So I think in that sense, they handled it really well. I thought the overall presentation was really charming, like they always are. I really love how Nintendo they're not just telling you about the game, but they're telling you about the game in the style of the game, which I thought was pretty neat. And they really had an air of confidence about these microtransactions in the presentation. I was really like studying it as I was watching, because they keep showing in the top left corner of the screen, there's like a little message with Tom Nook on it, and it says like, buy, you know, leaf tickets, like buy them now or whatever. And like, yeah, that's annoying, but in the presentation they weren't afraid to not show that. You know, they were like, all right, look, this is going to be here, it's going to pop up, it's going to ask you to buy money, but again, like, you know, you don't have to. There's really nothing in this game that requires you to spend a penny of your own money. So in that sense, you know, I think that it was the best way for them to handle something like that.
Especially if it's as long as it's not like a pay to play model or something like that. Which I don't want to show off too much of my fanboyism here, but I don't think Nintendo would ever do that. You know, like they're always trying to focus on keeping the games fun, and you know, it's a mobile game, so you're gonna have these microtransactions present. Like, that's just the inherent nature of those types of games.
Yes,
I will say, this game is a lot different from what I was expecting to come out from Animal Crossing, but it's a clever setup. I don't know if I would pick it up myself. I mean, I'm still I'm just not very big into mobile games in general, but for a lot of mobile gamers out there, this looks like a really great fix for Animal Crossing.
Yeah, and you know, I think a lot of people are really hungry for Animal Crossing right now. And I know everybody really wants that Switch version, which hopefully, of course, will still come down the line. But if you're really into Animal Crossing, I suggest you pick this up, even if you don't play mobile games, because I think this might be the one that could help you really get into maybe mobile games, and it still has a lot of the same features. I mean, let's face it, Animal Crossing is the best game to play in the idea of play for a little bit each day, like maybe like 10 to 20 minutes. So if you have that experience on your phone, it really does make all the sense in the world, But that being said, I made some controversial comments on Twitter this week where I said I'm kind of over Animal Crossing.
Yes, if you hadn't brought it up just now, I was 100% about to call you out on this.
Yeah, and I would like to clarify that and say that it is 100% true. I am kind of over Animal Crossing. I was watching that presentation, and yeah, there's like some new stuff, and you're in a camp instead of a town, but like it still just felt like the same thing again for like the 6th time, and I'm just not interested anymore. I really want them to do something totally out there that's really different, not just a couple new small features here and there, but like just something completely fresh and new, and this still isn't it. And the first Animal Crossing, I loved that game so much. I was so into it. I played it so much. But for each one after that, I was getting less and less and less interested. I will say New Leaf was really great, and I did play a surprising amount of that. But again, it was just still the same main core idea of doing the same things, the same chores, making the same money to pay the same raccoon. Like, I'm kind of over it. And I will take all flack from Animal Crossing fans that want to direct it my way, but I'm kind of done with it.
Man, I can't believe that after all these years, a friendship dies like this, but here we are. No longer friends.
No. Who cares? You're not going to make it through this sickness anyway, and I'll have a new co-host.
Fair point. All right.
Any final thoughts on Pocket Camp?
No.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on. Next on the big news that happened was the shuttering of Visceral Games. Visceral Games, they were the studio that was in charge of most famously the Dead Space series, and they also did work, I think, on Battlefield Hardline. They were, this is kind of foreshadowing a bit, but they were an EA-owned studio. And unfortunately, if, anyone out there listening, if you work for a game developer who is in some way owned by EA, then your days are numbered. You're
really
you're
sad,
marked.
but true fact.
It's little known fact that I don't actually advertise too much, but I've had like my own personal boycott of EA for like the longest time. Like, I can't remember the last time I bought a game with that was published by EA.
It's so funny that EA won like worst company in the world 2 years in a row.
They did.
It's crazy.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean they're a video game publisher. Like, it's like they're not actually the worst, but they, for our purposes, they are the worst. And basically, one of the main driving forces behind shuttering of Visceral was they were working on this single-player Star Wars game. And from the sound of it, I mean, it sounded pretty cool. It was, from what I understand, going to be in a similar vein to the Uncharted series. They actually even had Uncharted veteran Amy Hennig as the director of the project. and they were making a Star Wars game that was kind of in that similar vein, where it wouldn't be so much focused on Jedi's Force or anything like that. It would be, more focused on like nitty gritty, like guerrilla type warfare. And I mean, it could have been interesting, but now the initial reports were saying that EA was looking. They wanted to shutter this game, and they were transferring the resources to a different studio because they wanted to focus on something with like more lasting gameplay, something that would keep players coming back over and over again. And that led to a lot of discussion about how like a lot of publishers and developers were shying away from good old classic single player games such as like Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey or Horizon Zero Dawn, and moving more towards these online massively multiplayer type games such as Destiny 2, or BioWare has Anthem coming out, which is just pretty much their version of Destiny.
Right.
And that led to a lot of people like commenting about like, oh, is this like the death of the single player game, which was crazy. That's never going to happen. And
yeah.
I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago, I forget when, but Jason Schreier from Kotaku actually had a really, really good write-up on how Visceral closed and a lot of the behind-the-scenes action that was going on there. And from everything that I had read and from what I had gleaned from his piece, Visceral was in a mess, and this game that they were working on was also a mess. And there were many factors that contributed to that. Like, for instance, Amy Hennig, when she was working on the Uncharted series, her style was more focused towards like the actual like story and the character development of the series, whereas her co-director on the Uncharted series, Bruce Straley, focused more on like the gameplay and the level design elements. So now she was coming to the Star Wars game with, she had the Uncharted experience, but she didn't necessarily know the technical aspects in terms of how to recreate the Uncharted type levels and I guess mold those to the Star Wars universe. Like, she had an idea how it needed to look and how it needed to be, but she didn't know like how to actually get there. So there was a lot of confusion there. There was a lot of miscommunication and strife coming from EA themselves because, again, this game was focused not on the Jedi and not on the traditional Star Wars characters that we know and love. And EA was taking a look at this game, and they were saying, where are the Jedi? Where are all the Star Wars characters that we know and love? Like, they need to be in this game. And it was like, that's not the type of game they're trying to make.
Yeah.
And I feel like, too, the game itself was too ambitious in scope. Like, there's a part in the article where the developers describe like a demo being shown off for the game and how like this game was supposed to have like many different branching paths and a very complex AI system in place where, for instance, like you could screw with a stormtrooper in that like he leaves a room with the light on, you sneak in, you turn the light off, he comes back, he's confused, turns the light back on, leaves, and then you turn it back off, he comes back, and now he's like really freaked out, like, okay, what's going on here? And I mean, like, that's extremely complex for any enemy AI, and they were trying to incorporate that sort of thing into the game. I mean, they talked about how they spent like hours and hours in one part in the demo where the main character is walking through a doorway and his like sleeve like brushes up against the doorway or something, and they were talking about the level of detail in that sleeve like brushing up against the door was just insane. And it's like there's now this is like what we were talking about before, where you have a lot of stuff in a game, like a lot of overdevelopment, I guess, where people are focusing on putting too much into the wrong areas of the game. Like I know you mentioned like how games like don't need to have like the different aspects. Like you look at Stardew Valley, you look at a game like Undertale, which were all developed by one person over like a couple of years, versus like these studio made games with like hundreds of people having like little bitty itty bitty details. And I mean, like, for the most part, like a lot of that stuff is cool. Like you look at Destiny 2 and you look at the beautiful vistas and the scenery and just the little touches here and there, but they don't have the level of detail that is being described in this potential Star Wars game that was coming out. And that to me, like, it felt like Visceral was putting a lot of their eggs into the wrong baskets, and that helped contribute to their ultimate demise. And I mean, there was also the fact they were in San Francisco, where rents and prices for everything are just sky high. It was just, for a while, a lot of the developers at Visceral described as seeing the writing on the wall for a while, and especially that whatever was happening, this game was not going to come out, especially not the way that they envisioned it eventually coming out. And it's just
Right.
and it's just such a shame, because I mean, I always hate to hear about when a studio closes and a lot of these people lose their jobs. Now, EA, to their credit, did offer to place a lot of these developers in other positions within the company. They offered to help them find employment outside the company if they so desired. So they did.
Right.
So they didn't leave a lot of these developers completely in the lurch, but still, I mean, it's just always a shame when a studio is shuttered in this way, especially one that had developed a series that was so renowned and as respected as Dead Space.
Yeah, that's the one thing, because I've heard all that same stuff that you just said. The one thing I just don't understand is, so supposedly EA was taking the assets of this game and transferring it to, I think, their Vancouver studio or something,
Yes.
and going to try and rework it into something else. I just don't understand why they had to close Visceral. Like, why didn't they just say, all right, we're scrapping this? Like, you guys, because these guys have the assets and everything. They know how it works. Like, let's change direction, start over, and, like, you guys handle this. Like, why did they need to close the entire studio and get rid of all these jobs? Like, I don't understand how that comes into play.
I think a lot of it has to do with again, the costs involved. Like EA, like Vancouver, a lot of their studios that they maintain all throughout. Like I think they have one in Montreal, Austin, Texas, Vancouver. A lot of these locations offer tax breaks to game development companies, and just overall costs of living in these places are much lower than they are in San Francisco. So I think it just specifically has to relate to costs, I suppose. But yeah, I don't. I just don't know. Like like I wish the studio didn't have to have been closed down. I wish they could have maybe been reorganized, or maybe the studio could have moved somewhere where the prices weren't as exorbitant. But then again, I mean, a lot of the developers there are locals, so it's I mean, they're working at the studio that's closest to them.
Yeah,
So
that's a shame, really.
yeah.
I here's wishing that they all bounce back from this and find something else soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that leaves us with our last news story, and that is going to be the surprising to none fact that Microsoft is finally killing off the Kinect. The Kinect was their camera peripheral that came out around the middle of the 360 time. Basically, in the Wii craze of motion control and motion capture, Microsoft developed this camera accessory that worked with a lot of games, especially a lot of their dance games, where it kind of looks at you on the screen. It like films you and it puts you on the screen, and when it started, it actually was kind of a pretty neat thing, but I think quickly people started to realize that it was kind of gimmicky. Developers were really struggling for ways to use this thing in their games, and then it just became sort of spotty and hard to use. I know that when so the Kinect was packaged with the Xbox One when it was originally launched, and it had this whole built-in feature where you could control the UI just by moving your hand. We think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but you could like hold your hand in front of the camera, and then you can kind of swipe through the different pages of the UI. You could grab onto an icon of a game and like kind of clench your fist, and it would like start the game. And then, I remember I was over at my friend's house playing it and trying to get it to work, and it wouldn't work at all. It was like really touchy. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of quietly took out that feature in one of their UI updates, and you couldn't do that anymore. So things have slowly been dripping away from this. Microsoft decided to take back the packaging of the Kinect in with the Xbox One, so now it was being sold separately, and then it became just a peripheral that you could buy, and then, okay, you don't even need it anymore for anything, and, eventually the writing on the wall was this thing was going to stop, and, they are no longer manufacturing the Kinect, which, it makes sense. If something's not working, you can't just keep pushing it out there and hoping that it will, You have to kind of look at the statistics of everything, and coupled with the gameplay and developer feedback, and you kind of have to listen like, all right, look, I know we spent a lot of time in development into this thing, but it's just not working out anymore, and it's time to make this decision. But that doesn't mean that the Kinect was a failure, because it actually led to a lot of the work that Microsoft is doing now on the HoloLens, and they actually have some stuff with phones that they're working with. So really, it was just kind of being evolved into something else right now. But unfortunately for gaming, in its sense, it's just really not really something that needs to be used anymore. So it got the axe this week.
I really don't think anyone is going to, I guess, miss it too much. There really isn't a lot of wailing or gnashing of teeth over this decision. I mean, anyone could see that this was a long time coming, as you said. And I mean, it's just it was just time to pull the plug. There was really no need for it anymore, no use for it, especially like nowadays. You've got VR. I mean, the jury, for me anyway, is still out on the viability of VR going forward, but we'll see. I mean, again, like if you have streaming or any other sort of webcam that you need, you can just simply hook that up and it will do the same process. It would give you the same end result that the Kinect would, and there just isn't a market for the Kinect anymore. People aren't clamoring for it anymore, and it was just, I mean, it was time. Like it had its era. It had its run, which was fine for a while, but it was time to move on. And so here's to the Kinect. We will pour one out for you.
Yeah, pour one out for the old Kinect. I mean, let's face it. Everybody that likes the Kinect has one already. They're using it for their dance games or whatever. It's just its time is up. And if you think about it, it really spanned 2 generations from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One. So it kind of was around longer than I thought it would even be.
Yeah, it definitely lasted much longer than I ever anticipated it lasting. But yeah, I mean, it again, it had a good run. I know that was the big issue with the Xbox One. I mean, I even remember when the Xbox One was first coming out, it came packaged with the Kinect, and a lot of people I remember at the time were saying, "Why does this thing have to come with a Kinect?
Yeah.
This is I don't want to have the Kinect with this system."
Yeah, even then it was unwanted.
Yes. So, I mean, here's to the Kinect, the beloved peripheral that nobody wanted.
All right, and with that, that is going to end our little news roundup.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of news, a lot to unpack. Uh, yeah, Justin, we're starting to get into the end of the year, which you know what that means. Game of the year is starting to come up.
Yeah, it's we picked the worst year to start a podcast because man, there are so many good games this year. I mean, this weekend alone, like we said earlier. Um, but yeah, we are going to have a game of the year wrap up towards the end of the year, and I think we'll have an episode a little later on that's just going to explain basically how our whole ranking system is going to work and who's involved and everything. And then, at the end of the year, we will have our big episode. So, a lot to look forward to in the next couple months.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely stay tuned for further details.
That about wraps it up for this week. Remember, Press A repeatedly posts new episodes Mondays on iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you.
You can follow us on our Facebook page and on Instagram at Press A Repeatedly. We're also on Twitter at Press A Repeatedly. Justin is at Oaf7724. I'm at cgold113. You can email us any questions or comments at parpodcast@gmail.com. That's all for this episode. Justin and Chris signing off. And remember to jump up in the air, jump up, don't be scared, jump up so your cares will soar away. Press A repeatedly.
I think next week we'll have you sing that entire song at the end.
I would love nothing more.